Today is Sunday, the 27th of April, 2025. Live and direct from Auckland Park in Johannesburg, we are SABC News. You're watching The Week Ahead here on SABC News. It may be Freedom Day, but the news cycle never rests. So why should we? This is why we're here, to gather and geolocate you in relation to the story, where it stands now and where it will go next. So let's get started. Acting President Gwede Mantashe has addressed the main Freedom Day celebrations in Mpumalanga in Ermelo. The day is celebrated under the theme, United in Resilience for the Defense of Our Freedom and Democracy. But some South Africans feel there's little to celebrate on this Freedom Day, as many communities are yet to access better service delivery. The Umkhonto weSizwe Party leader Jacob Zuma is scheduled to deliver the Solomon Mahlangu lecture today as the country observes Freedom Day. Zuma is expected to begin the commemoration of the young anti-apartheid activist at the Kgosi Mampuru Correctional Facility where Mahlangu was detained. He will also visit the cemetery in Mamelodi where Mahlangu was buried after he was executed in 1979. And in your sport, the Sharks fought back to secure a famous victory against Ulster in the United Rugby Championship. Ulster had a stunning start to the game and went into the second half leading by 19-5. However, in the second half, it was all Sharks who fought back to claim a 22-19 win. Hey, good afternoon and welcome to today's edition of The Week Ahead. We hope you're having a reflective and refreshing Freedom Day holiday. So let's start with coverage of the events to mark the day then. The National Freedom Day commemoration event is currently underway at the AJ Swanepoel Stadium in Ermelo in Mpumalanga. Acting President Gwede Mantashe has delivered the keynote address. And let's go live now to SABC News reporter Natasha Piri, who's been covering the commemorations and celebrations. Good afternoon, Natasha. So a message delivered in the end by Acting President Gwede Mantashe. Just some backdrop and background to how that came about and what his main thrust in the message was.
Well, thank you so much, Tilasizwe. Of course, before the acting president, Gwede Mantashe, had actually come here. We had an interview earlier on with the Minister of Sports, Arts and Culture, Mr. Gaten McKenzie, who explained that the president is actually sick, and by the doctor's orders, he was ordered to actually stay at home and not attend today's event as he's down with flu. And of course, Gwede Mantashe, the minister, is now the acting president, and of course has represented President Cyril Ramaphosa in delivering the keynote address here at the AJ Swanepoel Stadium in Ermelo, Mpumalanga, just highlighting the strides of the government over the past 31 years, saying that doesn't understand when people say there's not much to celebrate. He says that the country broke free from the shackles of a very draconian system of apartheid. And of course, that momentous moment on the 27th of April 1994, there was democratic breakthrough where the country, experienced and saw various people of all races voting for government of their choice, saying that in light of what's happening in the country and of course in geopolitics, the country must not let other people, other groupings define who South Africa is, and should not divide us racially. But let's just perhaps get some sentiments from ordinary people who have come all and sundry from this province to in Mpumalanga on what their meaning is of the day and how they resonate with Freedom Day. Baba siyabonga isikhathi sakho ne. I mean, what does Freedom Day mean to you? And perhaps mhlawumbe usungasitshela ukuthi wena bowukuphi ngo-1994 ukhumbulani futhi?
Okay. Okokuqala
Cela ukhulumele phezulu baba.
okokuqala lelanga namhlanje lisho okukhulu kimi lisho ukushintsha kithi kwabantu abamnyama ngoba sokhumbula ukuthi maphambileni bekunencindezelo lapho umuntu omnyama bekangakhoni khona ithuba lokuthi aze express yena mayelana nokuthi akhone ukuvota bekangakhoni besingalalo ilungelo thina njengabantu abamnyama so ukuba khona kwalelanga lashintsha izimpilo zethu sonke thina sibantu abamnyama mawuthi uzocheka kulukhulu ushintsho olube khona emphakathini wethu wase-South Africa.
Mhlambe baba, if you can take us back to that moment of 1994 wawuvota ngalelo langa lelo nakhona perhaps your feelings, your mixed emotions. For the first time there was a democratic government. For the first time people of all races, across all races, could vote for their own government of choice. What feelings does that invoke?
Yeah, uyabona kwakuyinjabulo enkulu kakhulu kangokuthi mina njengomuntu and kwakuyilanga lokuqala vele ngivota kwakuyinjabulo enkulu kakithi kakhulu kubantu abamnyama kangokuthi vele sasivotela khona ukuthi sikhululeke sizoba nezinto ezinhle i-government yethu ezokhethwa yithi njengabantu abamnyama ukuthi omunye nomunye abe nelungelo ukuzuza okunye nokunye lokho akudingayo.
And then, Baba, when you look 31 years down the line, what do you think the state of the country is, Konamanje? Nakonoguti, this time around, you're celebrating Freedom Day under a government of national unity.
Yeah. Maunga peg. Ekuqaleni izinga lethu laleli ngane kakhulu kangukuthi abantu bebanganazindlu okokuqala besinganamanzi besingana ugesi izindlela zethu besingenazo kodwa okwamanje mawungathi uyabheka izinto zonke zenzekile mawungacheka futhi ukuthi abantu abadala bekungasiwo wonke umuntu obekathola igrant but okwamanje wonke umuntu omdala uyayithola igrant abantwana abancane bayakhona ukuthola igrant yabo so ushintsho olukhulu mina engilibonile la eMzansi Africa since kule 31 years endlulile.
What else do you think governments could do more? Ngiyeza ukuthi uthini, but abanye abantu bayacomplain ukuthi abanamanzi la emelo khona ama potholes amaningi abantu abasebenzi.
Yeah. Engicabanga ukuthi kona kuyiqiniso elikhulu ukuthi abantu abasebenzi kodwa ke mina ngicabanga ukuthi mhlambe if ngoba kunamathuba la ukuthi mhlambe thina abantu abamnyama sizenzele imisebenzi yethu okuzosinceda ngoba angeke sonke sasithola si government kodwa i-government inamathuba kuma department ukuthi omunye nomunye ageze azenzele umsebenzi ukuze azokhona ukuheha abanye futhi abantu abachashe ukuze bakhona ukusebenza.
Ngiyabonga baba isithuba lakho isikhathi sakho igama nesibonga ngilithola
ufani wakamashiya ngibuya ethembisile hani municipality khona la eMpumalanga.
Bafana ngiyabonga isikhathi sakho. Well, Thulasi, of course, just also engaging with the ordinary people here on the ground. And of course, Ubabafan, they're just explaining that for him, a lot has actually changed over the past 31 years. At that time, he voted for a new democratic government. And of course, right now, he's under the government of, national unity. Of course, yes, the government has still got a long way to go, but there are some improvements and some strides that the government had made over the past 30 years. People now have houses, drinkable water, and some employment opportunities. So these are just some of the sentiments that are coming from the people here on the ground. We do hope to speak to the acting president, Mr. Gwede Mantashe, on other national interests or issues of national interest. But of course, with that said, it's back to you in studio for now.
Thank you for that, Natasha. I can only imagine how Gwede Mantashe must be feeling at the moment, knowing his boisterous character, at this prospect of being called acting president. And I do believe that when you do speak to him, you will be able to reflect with him on that. So that is Natasha Phiri there, coming to us live from Ermelo. From Ermelo to the town formerly known as Brandfort, Winnie Mandela. The EFF is holding its Freedom Day commemoration in that town, Winnie Mandela, in the Free State. The apartheid government banished struggle stalwart Winnie Madikizela Mandela to the town, then known as Brandfort. This was due to her fearless political activism. Party leader Julius Malema will address the gathering under the theme, "There is no economic or political freedom until women enjoy total emancipation from patriarchal violence and GBVF." So let's go to Aphumelele Mdlalane, who is live for us on that story. Locate us where we are in terms of the story. Aphumelele, how far have we gone in terms of the commemorations there led by the EFF, and what are the expectations there?
Well, as I can indicate right now that the president of the EFF, Julius Malema, has just arrived. I was about to talk to the Treasurer General, Mpile Maute, where she was just going to indicate why they've chosen Brandfort, as you have indicated that it is known to be, of course, where the struggle stalwart Winnie Mandela used to be banished in the days of apartheid. And we do know the rich history that it holds, because there's just many activities that she has done for the community of Majwe Masweu. And we do see now residents of here, until today when we're talking to them, they are still complaining about the issue of service delivery, amongst others, the inconsistent supply. And they are saying there's nothing to celebrate about Freedom Day, because they're still struggling with water, which is the basic need. And they're saying that there's no jobs created here, even though this town was changed to Winnie Mandela. But they say that of course, there is no contribution thereof by the Free State government to make sure that the people of this community are, of course, being supported. They are saying that rather this community has, of course, came from from bad to worse, and we do see now the leadership of the EFF is here, and the program is about to start in no time. And we just, of course, have to also highlight that their program took it took longer to start, because they were waiting for the CIC. But I can also indicate that the residents are saying they are very looking forward to hear what will the address of Julius Malema be, of course, focusing on, because they are saying the issue of high unemployment in this area, and with the issue of service delivery, they would want, of course, to at least be given hope that has, of course, been long dead, because they are saying so much has happened, activities of Free State government coming to this very place. And can also indicate that this stadium where we're at, it's not far from the house of Winnie Mandela. We do know that that house has also had its own controversy, where there was an issue of East being, of course, identified as a heritage site, and also it being improved in terms of that, and so that it can, of course, attract, a tourist among others, and it can also bring that rich history. And now the program has started, and we do hear that now they will be singing the national anthem, and we will also talk to these residents after the keynote address by Julius Malema, just to hear what are they taking home, as they are saying that their hope, of course, is dead now, that this Majwe Masweu community doesn't have proper service delivery. Back to you.
All right, thank you for that. That is Aphumelele Mdlalane, live for us from the town formerly known as Brandfort and now known as Winnie Mandela. So, as you've been hearing from our reporters in the field, there's lots of reflection on what Freedom Day means for various South Africans. So we thought, let's take that conversation forward then and bring in three guests that symbolize just the field of difference in terms of what Freedom Day means. One of them in studio with me, DJ Gaba Kanal, a young amapiano DJ. Yeah. But I will also be joined by Magauta Molefe, a struggle veteran, a former detainee at the women's jail at Constitutional Hill, as well as Lebohang Dikojane, who is an entrepreneur who will join this conversation. So thank you for joining me this afternoon. Let me start with you, DJ Gaba Kanal.
Yeah. Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Thank you for coming through.
Thank you.
So just a broad question then. We reflect on Freedom Day, and I imagine that for you, it's a lot about the arts,
Yes.
culture, and that freedom of expression.
Yeah,
Tell me in
yeah.
your own words, what does Freedom Day mean to you?
It means everything, my brother. I think as myself in the creative space, it has helped us a lot, to explore and also to be just creative, I think that 31 years of freedom means a lot to the industry at large and everyone who's in the creative space.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let me see if I have Magauta Molefe on the line because they are going to be joining us virtually. Magauta, good afternoon. I hope you can hear me, and thank you for making the time to speak to me this afternoon. Just a broad question. I mean, you are steeped, of course, in the struggle as well as the difficulties back then of restrictions of communication. My understanding is that you used to be a courier for sensitive messages, and at some point you were detained at Constitution Hill. So reflecting 31 years later, what does Freedom Day mean to you?
Freedom Day is supposed to be a celebration of freedom, but what it means to me is the rot that is in the country, the suffering, the lack of meeting the hopes of people. So for me, there's still a lot that has to be done. For me, it means frustration because every day we are hurt, every day we are troubled by what we see in our country. While a certain section of people becomes richer, they become millionaires, and our country is plundered by nationalists who come here and take our wealth, and yet our people remain poor. So it's a sad story.
Sure.
For the past 31 years, we never saw freedom. We only have rights to vote.
Sure. Powerful indictment. Let me pose the same question to you, Lebohang. Just from your perspective as an entrepreneur, there's always this talk about freedom is incomplete for as long as there is no economic freedom. Just your own reflections of what Freedom Day means to you and whether it encompasses and includes that economic freedom.
Hi, Tula Sizwe. Thanks for the question. So I think for me, in as much as we do have Freedom Day, and we speak of us being free as South Africans, I think we need to really be honest with ourselves, right? Number one being what Freedom Day really entails to many of us in South Africa. And I think for me, number one, I think of course it has got us like an access to the country and to institutions and to opportunities, which is just access, right? But it has never provided anything for us, right? So in as much as I'm an entrepreneur and I got into the space, it's still a difficult situation where I find myself having to try and see how to build these businesses. And I think it only speaks to how freedom has basically been positioned for us. There's no framework that allows us to basically be able to function as normal citizens and as South Africans that can be able to be, as you said, economically empowered and politically empowered by ways of us being able to move around.
Yeah.
Hence the
All right. Lebohang, we'll come back to you in a moment. These are the joys of doing these things virtually, so the line letting us down a little bit there. Magauta Molefe, let me come back to you because what I'd like to try and do is that sometimes it feels like it's an intergenerational, a cross-generational conversation that is happening with questions that the current youth are posing to their forebears, such as yourself. So I want to do that quite practically this afternoon with the guests that we have. But for that to happen, let's start with you reflecting on your own involvement in the struggle against apartheid. If you can summarize, in a way I sort of summarized it, but it's more powerful when being told by you. Tell me about your role in the communication, because this says to me, this was a time when communication was restricted between activists, and you played a particular role and paid the price for it.
I was a youth who was motivated by a lot of things that happened around me as a black person when my father was house arrested in the 60s. But when I was in high school, then I heard about SASO, about black consciousness, And I want to say to the youth, I was not recruited. I don't even know how we got the way that there are meetings at the Y, at Regina Mundi. We just used to go. And that is how we had, and we decided as a group of youth from my area that we are going to join and be part of the thing. And that is where it started. And we followed the history of SASO. We followed the meetings. We followed the university students when they were suspended from universities. We went to the meetings. That's how I learned. And there were no cell phones. Like, we didn't have a phone at my home. So I don't know how, but somebody would come and say, they say there's a meeting at the Y. And we just go there. And these people were a bit elder from us, Bohirin and Gwenkulu, Steve Biko, but we followed the Bodeps Machoba. These were people that we believed in, and we thought they are bringing freedom for us. So we are going to join. And in the end, then I became a SASM member, a founder of SASM, and the story goes on and on.
Yeah.
So I get a lot of youth today who blame us and say we don't recruit them. They say, no, we don't recruit them. But there are so many circumstances that makes a person be an activist around where you stay.
Yeah.
The lack of services, things that are happening around, there's so much opportunity to organize your own community, and that's where you should start.
Sure. So let's carry it forward then and make it intergenerational. DJ Gaba Kanal, when you listen to Mema Khauta there, how much of that activism do you identify with, and how much of the work that they started do you believe you are able to contribute to advancing through your music and other activism?
I think also, man, I think music just speaks a different language, in terms of being there in the freedom part, I think for us, we were able to have access to a lot of things based on what Abu Mama did for us, and I feel like now we just need the government or the country at large to just support that also, I think with music that we do, let us also be able to venture into different things, different music businesses, so in that point, I feel for me at the moment we do eat from that, but I think the country or the government needs to help us more, to shape the music genre at large, because it plays a very good role and a big role in shaping the freedom of the country.
And I think intergenerationally, there's a sense of not understanding the exact language that is being spoken by the youth through genres such as Amapiano. Tell me what is the essence of the message in relation to the issues you raise, social issues you raise, because remember, part of the struggle against apartheid was quite musical.
Yeah, it was.
So what is your toi-toi? What is your toi-toi with Amapiano in 2025?
I think for us, man, it's just spreading love, number one, just spreading the good message, and just being able to speak good things to the ear, At the end of the day, music plays a very huge role, we listen to music every day, every time. And I think with that, we should, especially for piano, we should definitely try to do in a good way, because there are different sounds of piano, genres and stuff, But as the youth, I would say that we just need more support, in those factors in creating this thing bigger and better.
Lebohang, let me come to you. Mema Khauta talks about identifying your own struggles and not waiting to be recruited into it, but also at the start she was talking about a sense of betrayal being something that stands out for her when she reflects on Freedom Day. Your thoughts as we have this intergenerational conversation? How much inspiration do you draw from their struggles, their activism that, as she says, did not require recruitment? You don't need to be recruited. You identify and you plug in.
Yeah, I think for me, I respect the generation of Bon Mema Khauta quite a lot, right? Because it reminds us of also what Frans Fanon has said, right? To speak about every generation has a mission that it needs to fulfill. And I think they played their part quite well. And when you asked even the question around what activism do you see in this role or in an industry that one is playing in, I think it's quite important to see what I'm doing as an entrepreneur as an activism, really to try and see how we empower ourselves economically, or really try to understand how to build an economic framework that would work for those that struggled before. Even maybe let me put it as it is, right? For black people to be really economically included in the country economy. So,
Yeah.
and I think that's the activism that we have to take as black entrepreneurs, to say, how do we really build these things? And to make another point is to say, if you are looking at entrepreneurship amongst the black generation, we don't really have the frameworks that have really shown how we can build successful businesses. Hence, you have so many businesses that fail because the framework that we used is just through BEE empowerment. And that was also it looks like it had a few people that need to be selected to play in that part, but the rest of the country we really struggle.
Yeah.
And we've built an economy that basically tries to seek for, like, for you to really survive as a black entrepreneur, you have to be an outlier, right? Because most black generations, or most of my peers,
Yeah.
some of us, if you look at it, there's still a lot of people that don't have access to education. There's still a lot of people that don't necessarily go to proper schools or even afford tertiary institutions. So it becomes very difficult for you to really survive how this framework
Sure.
has been set out. So systematically, I think we are fighting against a big monster, and we really need to understand how to build towards that. Because we are really focusing on politically sloganeering, as you said, and we think that's how we will approach this. So I think the generation that came before, they fought that. But I think the conversation around how do we really take from that and be able to use history as a teacher to be able to say, how do we create now a future that would make sense for us as black entrepreneurs?
As you can see at the bottom of the screen there, you can join this conversation by dialing those numbers at the bottom of the screen. And that's exactly what Stanley, calling from Delmas in Mpumalanga, my home province. Good afternoon to you, Stanley. You want to weigh in on this conversation?
Yes.
Okay.
Afternoon to you and all the viewers and everyone at South Africa. Yeah, my man, this Freedom Day is bringing a lot of shame to us, especially as a black nation, you see. Economically wise, even when it comes to education, and the education that we are having is not the education that our leaders used to fight for. You see, so now what we are we are in a real shame. I mean, we are in real shame. This is not, we can't call it freedom. We can't say it's freedom. You see, we lack lot of things. First of all, self-reliance, man. If we don't talk about the land issue, then self-reliant and self-business, black-owned business people won't grow. You see, even the knowledge we don't have. So I can say our politicians, really need to change the way how they run the system.
All right, let's leave it there. Thank you for that. That's Stanley out in Delmas. DJ Kabakanal, let me, do you identify with that?
Yes, I do. I do. I think the government can do better. I think also being in a different field than others, there are a lot of issues we face in different fields, and I feel like in the creative space, there are those gaps too, and like I said, man, I think the government can do better. And yeah, man, I think also, like the brother said, in terms of education and stuff like that, for me, music was an escape, because I couldn't afford being in a good institution, going to school and stuff like that. But now, also, the freedom that we fought for was that we go to school, but we couldn't afford that, So for me, music has been an escape, and it's been doing good. But I'm trying also and asking for the government to just do better in our field.
So if I stick with you for a moment, broadly, when we talk about rights, human rights, that's entrenched and quite firm in our constitution. But the realization of those rights through pieces of legislation, for example, I know that you've got a big issue in your industry around copyright, as well as labor laws and just those basic things, entitlements and things like that.
I think also, man, I think most people get into industries without the information, and the information is out there, and I was just having a conversation with a music lawyer who hypnosis a while back, that a lot of problems people face in the music industry is regarding contracts, and I think also we need to be educated more in that field, because now a lot is happening, people are crying all the time in terms of not receiving what they need, and stuff like that. So yeah, it's a very big issue in the copyright scene.
Yeah. Let me bring you back into the conversation. When you reflect then, would you say that your work, your struggle is done, or is it not? I mean, part of what you do, as far as I understand, is that you run a foundation, for example, that looks particularly at issues of women struggle veterans.
Our work is not yet done. You know, there's 3 issues that I'm struggling with. One is that there is a constitution that was adopted, which the government does not adhere to. We've just talked about the sections there, about the rights, the education, the healthcare, the rights of women. Nothing of that is happening. Number 2 is that as we were in the struggle, we had an enemy. We were united as Black people because we knew who our enemy were. So that's why the struggle was consolidated. Today, we don't know who the enemy is because 1994 came up with promises that never materialized. So as a big problem that we have is that our people live on hope. So every day they get frustrated. That is why we are having so much crime, because people are seeing politicians stealing and eating the country dry, and nothing is being done for them. So we really need to change what is happening. And a lot of us now, we're fighting for our own space as individuals, and people who cannot afford are on their own. So there's so much. Things have just gone worse and people are frustrated. So I don't know what can happen, because as far as I'm concerned, I see political parties just working for their pockets, and I see people are so disillusioned that the voting rate is going to go down. What we need is to mobilize our communities.
Right.
I am saying now, because there's local elections coming, people need to organize in their own spaces to raise the awareness.
Absolutely. And Lebohang, just a final word to you then as well. Just your own reflections of what it would take to unleash the potential of youth and other people in entrepreneurship so that economic freedom is progressively realized. Where do we need to unleash? Where are the shackles?
All right, cool. I think we really need an organization of these different institutions that are placed to support entrepreneurs, and I think it needs to be informed by really what we want to see out there, right? I mean, like even the question around financial freedom as an entrepreneur, what it means. I think we need to really understand how does this entrepreneur look like and what work needs to go into that. Because I think most of the times what we are trying to do is come up with solutions to problems that we don't necessarily understand, and we keep on missing the point. But I think what we really need to do is start at the framework. We need to redesign the framework of what entrepreneurship looks like in the country. What type of person do we want in the country to function, and where and how will we do that? And then that's where financing will come in. How do we put money to support these entrepreneurs? How do we put everything in place? But we really need to idealize and really look at it and say, this is what it will look like, because I think we don't have an idea what it looks like now. We keep borrowing ideas and concepts from different countries, and it does not make sense. So I think we need to fix that.
All right, let's leave it there. Thank you so much. I've really enjoyed what I've called an intergenerational conversation that we've had over the last few minutes. That's Lebohang Dikojane, but we were also joined by Magauta Molefe, who is a struggle veteran, as well as here in studio by DJ Gaba Kanal for that conversation reflecting on Freedom Day. Let's move on to this now. The Umkhonto weSizwe Party leader, Jacob Zuma, will today deliver the Solomon Mahlangu lecture as the country observes Freedom Day. Zuma will address the community of Mamelodi, Mahlangu's birthplace. His address is scheduled to take place at the square named after the young freedom fighter. Let's go live now to SABC News' Samgele Masego, who joins us from Mamelodi. Samgele, good afternoon. The event itself will mark the life of Solomon Mahlangu, but it's no coincidence. I do imagine that with it, the MK party intends to communicate a certain message that relates to current events in our politics, doesn't it?
In Indeed, Chula Sizwe, the former president of the country and the leader of the MK party, president of the MK party, Jacob Zuma, will touch on the current contemporary political issues of the country domestically, particularly pertaining to the budget of the country, the running of state-owned enterprises, and a number of issues plaguing the community of Mamelodi. But I'm going to bring in Mr. Abel Tau, who is the provincial spokesperson of the MK party. Mr. Tau, just the essence of this lecture, when can we anticipate the former president and the leader of the MK party, Jacob Zuma, to take onto the podium?
Thank you very much, Samkelo, and good afternoon to viewers at home. We expect the president to take the podium around 2 this afternoon. We are confident that he will be able to take South Africa to confidence as Umkhonto weSizwe would be leading going forward a new revolution. We believe that this country is not where it's supposed to be. We believe that the revolution has been sold out, and we believe that as black people in particular, our dignity has been undermined. And where we currently are as Umkhonto weSizwe, we believe that we are the only weapon that black people have in their hands to obviously respond to the current onslaught. We have seen young people here, and we want to remind them that people like Solomon Mahlangu took up the struggle, understanding that they may have to lay everything on the line to liberate this country. And now that there's over 50% unemployment for young people in particular, South Africa needs young people to rise to the occasion right now.
What will be the thrust of the message of your leader when addressing these hundreds of young people and community members of Mamelodi who will be gathered here?
Look, the crux of the message to the young people is that the generation of Solomon Mahlangu understood that they needed to take up the struggle and fight for the liberation of black people. Now, then it was going to be achieved through the barrel of the gun. That's what we believe. But now it has to be achieved through the vote. We believe that we need 2/3 majority as a party to go out and change the constitution so that we can decisively intervene for young people. As we build up to 2026, that will only be a stopover, but we are going to 2029, where Umkhonto weSizwe is pushing for a decisive 2/3 majority win that will allow us to move away from this constitutional democracy to a more parliamentary supremacy democracy that will allow us to intervene decisively and change the lives of our people. The land must be returned to its rightful owners, and our people must own their economy in their country.
Thank you very much, Mr. Abel Tau. That is Abel Tau, the provincial spokesperson of the MK party. As you can see, my colleague Leopold is just going to show you these hundreds and scores of people who are arriving here in Mamelodi for this effective Solomon Mahlangu lecture of the MK party that will be delivered by former president of the country, Jacob Zuma, who now leads his own political formation, Chula Sizwe. The MK party is going to be rather interesting. I did listen to him on some clips that I'd gotten from some MK members where he had spoken about the running of state-owned enterprises and making reference to the sale of SAA, making reference to the former late Minister of Public Enterprises, Pravin Gordhan. So it's going to be rather interesting on what he has to say on those SOEs like Transnet, like Danel, whom were largely in trouble during his era as president, faced some problems as well in the current era of President Ramaphosa, and effectively how the country is being run. We did see that Floyd Shivambu, the SG of the MK party, about 2 weeks ago, he said they're not getting involved in the domestic affairs of the government of national unity, particularly that of the Democratic Alliance and of the ANC.
All right, Samgele, thank you for that. That's Samgele Masego there, live for us from Mamelodi. So that's the MK event, the MK party's main event, commemorating the life of Solomon Mahlangu. The EFF, on the other hand, is at Winnie Mandela in the Free State, the town formerly known as Brantford. Let's take you there now. The EFF leader, Julius Malema, currently speaking.
Today, those who killed Krisani, they say they can repeat it again tomorrow. What is freedom about that? Today, as we speak, Krisani has never received his justice. Where is the justice of Steve Biko, who was killed in isolation. He died alone, naked and chained in a cell in 1977. Yet there's never been justice for the killing of Steve Biko, yet you claim freedom. Where is the freedom for the children who were killed in 1976? Hector Peterson, 12-year-old child, was killed in Soweto. Many children were killed in Soweto. Today we don't have the names of those who killed them. Today we don't have the names of those who sanctioned for the killing of the children in 1976. Fighters, the Craddock 4, Matthew Gonyiwe, Fort Kalata, Sparrow Konto, and Zitelo Mtauli. Till today, they have not received their freedom. 4 brave activists from the Eastern Cape were abducted, shot, tortured, and murdered by apartheid security forces in 1985. They were burned and mutilated bodies were dumped on a rural road. Till today, there's not been justice for the Craddock 4. Comrades, political freedom without economic freedom means nothing. Today, here in Free State, in Mangaung, our people are swimming in sewage, yet they claim to be free. Our people are unemployed in Free State, yet people say we must celebrate freedom. To call us to celebrate freedom, you mean we must celebrate unemployment. We must dance that our people are unemployment. We will never do that. For as long as our people are unemployed, there is no freedom in Free State. There is no freedom in Mangaung. There is no freedom in Masilonyane. Comrades, there is no reliable water here in Brantford. There is no electricity here in Brantford. Why must we celebrate freedom in darkness? What kind of freedom is this that we are called upon to celebrate in darkness without clean running water? Yet in towns where whites live, there is clean water and electricity. All of us are under the same municipality, but we don't receive the same services because we are black and they are white. Because we are black, they think we are inferior and we must receive inferior services. We must refuse to accept that and say we will never celebrate any freedom as long as there is no water running into our taps in each and every house, not on our streets. Fighters, no child must go to school where there is no flushing toilet. All schools must have flushing toilets. All schools must have learning material. No child must go to school and pay for school fees because education is not a commodity but a constitutional right. No child must buy a uniform because education is a right. Why are prisoners given free uniform yet children are not given free uniform? Comrades, no child must be raped at school. Schools must be small heavens. When we are at work, when we are pursuing the economic opportunities, our children must be safe in the schools. No teacher must sleep with children. Any black teacher who sleeps with a black child is a coward, is a mpimpi. He wants to destroy the future of South Africa. Comrades, what freedom must we celebrate when many of our children stay in shacks, not knowing where their next meal is going to come from? We need to guarantee our children meal every day. They must have breakfast when they arrive at school. They must have break and they must have lunch before they go home. When they arrive at home, they must find their parents with sufficient child grant which will buy them supper. They must never sleep with empty stomachs. They must never learn with empty stomachs. We want our children to be looked after. We want free education because The best investment is in education. You can see in Velcom, there used to be mines. Those mines are finished. Those mines have expired. But your education will never expire. That's why we must invest in education, because you will take it to your grave without an expiry date. Comrades, Mama Winnie Mandela was tortured for us to be free. Not for us to sleep with a councillor, for us to get a job like the ANC councillors are doing today. Mama Winnie in a grave, she's not at peace, because the movement has committed itself to the races she gave her life trying to defeat. How can Winnie Mandela sleep peacefully when she knows that the government is in bed with the enemy? The ANC is working with the DA that tried to kill Winnie Mandela, the DA that killed Chris Hani, the DA that killed Steve Biko, the DA that killed Robert Sobukwe. For as long as those people are not held accountable, the EFF will never go into bed with the enemy, will rather remain isolated, will rather remain excluded, but will stand on the side of the people and will stand on the side where Winnie Mandela stood until death. Comrades, the most critical thing facing all of us as a nation today is that South Africa does not have a budget. Nowhere in the history of the world has a country been able to operate without a budget. In other countries, the crisis we are in would have led to an early elections, because without a budget, there is no government. The day the ANC passed a budget illegally, that is the day this government has collapsed. Without a budget, there can be no money to fight crime and gender-based violence. So the women and children of South Africa are in danger because there is no budget. Without a budget, there can be no allocation of money to schools for your children, for textbooks, for feeding schemes, and to eradicate pit toilet. South Africa, without a budget, there can be no allocation for money for clinics and hospitals, for nurses and doctors, and for critical medication to save lives. Comrades and fellow fighters, without a budget, there can be no salaries for public servants and employees of government, and there can be no funds to fix roads and collapsing infrastructure. Without a budget, there is no possibility to grow the economy and create jobs. We were told by the media and markets that they want the ANC and DA-GNU because this coalition with racists will stabilize the economy and create stability. It has been 3 months now, and this country led by the GNU does not have a budget. This is an illegitimate government. You cannot be a genuine government without a legitimate budget. There is no budget because the Minister of Finance has withdrawn the division of revenue bill and the appropriations bill, meaning he has to create a new fiscal framework to introduce these bills again. That means there is no money allocated for anything in South Africa as we stand here today. Ino Godongwan wrote a letter to the media this week saying he is reversing VAT increase, and this same week a group of fools started celebrating with the ANC and called a press conference celebrating that they stopped a VAT increase. They are lying. It was the EFF that stopped the VAT increase in South Africa. All of them lined up like children in front of an ANC banner and celebrated, not knowing that the crisis was only beginning. Now SARS says that those businesses who had already prepared their system for a VAT increase will have until the 15th of May to reverse it. This means that for 15 days, some business will have 15.5% VAT rate and others a 15% VAT rate. This is the chaos the ANC has created. How can we have two separate VAT in the same country? The other business for the next 15 days will get 15.5. Those who get this extra 0.5% increase for 15 days, how are they going to pay the interest on that money? Because if I had not paid that money to those businesses, it will be in my account and it will accumulate interest. It was Musima Imani, Songezo Zivi, and Herman Mashaba who sold our people out working with the ANC. We must know them for who they are. Comrades, let me tell you, in order for the VAT increase to be reversed, there needs to be a sitting of parliament to first deal with that illegal fiscal framework they voted for on the 2nd of April. These criminals, we told them that you cannot reverse VAT outside parliament. Before they passed VAT, the EFF went to tell them that what you are doing is illegal. They used their small majority to outvote the EFF. We took them to court and we presented superior logic in court. When they listened to their arguments, they then said they are reversing VAT. Minister cannot reverse VAT outside parliament. Minister has got no power to overrule parliament. They must come back to parliament with egg on their face and come and face their shame for not following the laws and the constitution of the Republic of South Africa. Comrades, no amount of grandstanding can take away the fact that this country, it is what it is because of the EFF. If there was no EFF, you'll be paying more VAT. If there was no EFF, there will be corruption everywhere without being challenged. We must be happy that the EFF of the people is holding them accountable. Comrades, we must know that everywhere else in the world today, the people want to crush South Africa because of what South Africa stands for. We must never allow that South Africa must be bullied by imperialist forces. America must never tell us what to do. The same United States, which is furious at being cut off from the riches of Burkina Faso, cannot tell us what to do. We stand with Captain Traore. We stand with Traore because we know that Traore stands for the unity of Africa. We are Traore and Traore is all of us. If they kill Traore, you must know they would have created another wound in the continent of Africa. We must defend him the same way we defend the unity of Africa. We must defend China for defying the USA and telling the USA to go to hell because they don't understand how the tariffs works. Donald Trump is an enemy of himself and all of us, and he must know the EFF is not scared of him. The EFF is not scared of Israel. The EFF is not scared of Morocco. The EFF is not scared of the imperialist forces. The EFF will stand on the side of the people of DRC, the people of Sudan, and the people of Sahrawi. Comrades, we must ensure that before we achieve any of these things, we build a solid organization. I want to thank the commissars who are here in front, who launched legitimate branches of the EFF, because you must know that as Sub-Regional Interim Leadership Corps or a PCT or a commissar, if you launch a branch that is bogus, that branch has already lost elections in 2026. You must launch proper branches, because the launch of branches now is to prepare for 2026. We are starting now. We are here to say to all of you, let Free State lead by example and create the proper branches which will liberate the people of Free State. Fighters, I want to salute your fellow comrades in the Northern Cape, and I thought they were going to be here today so I can ask them to stand and you see the heroes of the EFF today. They went to Orania alone without the help of the national leadership. As a province, they never asked for a cent. They've never asked for a permission. They stood up one morning and said, we are going to confront the racist Orania and Freedom Front Plus. We salute them for being brave. We are with the people of Northern Cape. We are with the leadership of Northern Cape. We don't want Orania. We don't want Freedom Front Plus. We don't want the DA. We want the government of the people. Orania is possible because the ANC has lost power in Northern Cape. They want the vote of the FF Plus for them to remain in power. That's why they allow Orania. They must allow the EFF in the government of Northern Cape. Orania will die the following day. They must allow the EFF in the national coalition. AfriForum will go to prison the following day, because under the EFF government there will never be a place for AfriForum. Only strong branches can make us achieve all of this. Comrades, I want to salute the EFF Youth Command. I see them fighting every day in TVET colleges. I see them fighting every day in universities, like in Walter Sisulu University, where they were defending the students and fighting for their poor living conditions. We salute them for having been brave, and without the EFF leadership, they have taken the lead to lead the youth of South Africa. Today, every university, every tertiary institution.
All right, that is the EFF leader, Julius Malema, speaking in Winnie Mandela, that is in the Free State, the town formerly known as Brandfort. That's their main Freedom Day commemoration event. And I think the key takeout from there was Mr. Malema's allusion and talking about the situation with regard to the budget, the national budget of the country, saying there is an illegitimate government in this country. You cannot be a legitimate government without a legitimate budget, and also taking credit and saying that it was the EFF through its court case jointly with the DA, of course, that led to a reversal of course as far as the VAT increase is concerned. So that's how it's looking on this side of the hour. We'll be back with more coverage for you of the Freedom Day commemorations, but also giving you a sense of what the major news events will be in the various fields in the coming week. Stick with us. Developments. SABC News, independent and impartial.
Coming up on this weekend's edition of Week Ahead.
We are thankful for your support of Ukraine, for you sharing our understanding that this war has to be ended as soon as possible. This was our primary topic to discuss with President Ramaphosa.
There's always a fiscal risk in these matters, particularly in an environment when we've got a constrained fiscal space. That risk exists. The question is, how are we going to mitigate it?
There's also a need to take immediate and coordinated efforts as needed to de-escalate and reduce the current volatility and uncertainty and to provide policy clarity.
It's certainly possible to some extent, though fragmented, challenge the evidence to say we deny a common purpose and rely on whatever would present itself in the state's case to, as far as possible, challenge the evidence. But that itself is compromised, but not non-existent. I can't say that.
Just a few minutes after 1 p.m. on the Sunday, the 27th of April, 2025. This is SABC News, and you're watching The Week Ahead. We are your global positioning system, your GPS, locating you in relation to where the story is right now and where it will go next, and importantly, what it all means for you. So, let's get started. In your headlines, the National Police Commissioner, General Fani Masemula, will, together with the Deputy National Commissioner for Crime Detection, Lieutenant General Shadrack Sibiya, meet with the team that is investigating the disappearance of 3 police officers. Masemula and Sibiya will receive an update on the investigation. The officers were traveling from Bloemfontein to their deployment in Limpopo when they went missing earlier this month. Their last known location was a service station near the Grasmere Toll Plaza on the N1. Iranian authorities have warned of food shortages following a huge explosion at one of the country's largest ports. 14 people have been killed and more than 700 others are reported to have been taken to hospital following the explosion at Shahid Rajai port. And in your sport, Barcelona have inflicted more pain on their arch rivals Real Madrid after beating them 3-2 in the final of the Copa del Rey. This is the first trophy of the season for Hansi Flick's men as they are in the chase of winning a treble this season. Barcelona currently leads La Liga by 4 points over Madrid and will be playing Champions League semi-final against Inter Milan next week. Hey, good afternoon. It's great to be in your company on this Freedom Day. Naturally, we are watching a lot of live events, and as and when those get on the go, we will take you there, especially the speeches by various political parties that are reflecting and commemorating Freedom Day. But let's give you a sense of what's leading in as far as the national newspapers are concerned. And I'm joined now by Business Day editor Tisetso Motsweneng. Tisetso, good afternoon, and thank you for sticking by and agreeing to talk to me. I mean, of course, we're doing it slightly differently this week because of the events that are on the go, the live events sort of throwing off our program. Let's start with the just getting a sense of what's leading and showing our viewers what's on the front pages. The story around the VAT increase, I noticed, is the lead story, particularly on the Sunday Times. The uncertainty of where that will go next and how. So if we can just bring it up and just show our viewers what that lead headline is. So it says, VAT scrap goes the extra mile, goes to extra time rather. And you and I will reflect on that. And if we can quickly then show the lead story on the Sunday World, that newspaper leading with a different story altogether. It leads with Mamkhize drags PSL to court over club's expulsion. That will be coming up in a moment. And then you also have the Sunday Tribune that says court order needed to stop the VAT hike. But you and I, let's start our conversation with the lead in the Sunday Times. VAT scrap goes to extra time. It talks to the fact that there's just about not many working days before the VAT increase comes in. The conversation about the need for it to go via the route of Parliament, the resubmission of all of these pieces of legislation and the likelihood of them being seen over the finish line in time to avert coming into effect of that increase on the 1st of May. Just take me through your understanding of the dynamics at play.
No, thank you very much, Tula Sizwe and your viewers. There are two things here. On Friday, the DA submitted their supplementary affidavit. I mean, I think it was determination to cross their every I and to dot every I and cross every T. So because you can't just undo the VAT rate increase with just you need a court order, which makes sense. But the bigger thing here, as you mentioned to Lasizwe, is their pillar of the challenge, which is that the whole thing is not constitutional. That the finance minister has got too much powers on his hands in terms of tax policy, and the VAT Act itself is not constitutional. Yeah, so I mean,
I tell you what, I'm sorry to do this. I think let's take a pause and try and call you back, because we do have a bit of a difficulty with your line, and for some reason we're picking up some feedback and we want to get the full benefit of the conversation. So we'll come back to Disetso in just a moment, because there's a lot to unpack there, particularly the theme of whether or not by that announcement that the Minister of Finance made last week, whether that is sufficient to avert the 0.5 percentage point VAT increase coming into effect on the 1st of May, which is literally just a few working days away. So let's try and redial Disetso, and then we'll go back to that conversation. Welcome back. You're watching The Week Ahead here on SABC News. Let's continue our conversation with Disetso Motswaneng, who is the Business Day editor. Disetso, we were in the midst of talking about the supplementary papers that you're saying the DA and other parties to that litigation around the VAT increase submitted late last week. Tell me about that and what the implications are for what is needed after the announcement by the minister that the VAT increase won't kick in. What more is needed to take us forward? All right.
I missed a bit of that,
Sure.
Could you say that again?
Yes, absolutely. So the minister has made the announcement, is the point that you were making. The minister has made the announcement that VAT increase will not kick in, but it would seem is not that simple. It's not that simple. A bit more needs to happen, either by way of Parliament taking certain steps or a court order. And you were telling us about the papers that the various political parties have filed in the court in the Western Cape.
No, absolutely, Tula Sizwe. I think the issue, I don't know, I mean, I can hear an echo. It's distracting me.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think we are having some difficulties, but I can hear you clearly, and I don't know to what extent you are able to push through the echo that you are hearing while the team deals with it.
Okay, cool. Let me go ahead. Yeah, no, as you were saying, I mean, it's not as simple as a press release. You need a parliamentary process, or you need a court order to stop the VAT increase from going ahead on the beginning of this month, which is next week, really. So this is what the DA is doing, and making sure that there's crossing every T and dotting every I. But there is a bigger issue here, Tula Sizwe. As you know, the DA is telling the minister has got too much powers in terms of setting tax policy. So what they really want in their court challenge is to temper those powers and get the VAT or any tax increases based on the parliamentary processes.
Yeah. Now, Tisetso, I think let's let you go. We are battling with the line. You clearly there's something interfering and it's giving you a difficulty, and I can tell, and it's only fair that we perhaps let you go at this point. If it's at all possible, we'll try and redial and sort out whatever those challenges are and try and have a better conversation. But importantly, just to sum up what Tisetso was talking about there have been supplementary papers that have been filed in the court in the Western Cape that basically make the argument that the minister simply announcing, as it did, I think it was on Wednesday, that the 0.5 percentage point increase in VAT will not be kicking in on the 1st of May, that on its own is not sufficient to stop the VAT increase coming into effect. It's a point that I think you heard Julius Malema of the EFF alluding to, that actually, there's more that needs to happen. Parliament needs to pass legislation. It all brings it back to this conversation around Section 7, subsection 4 of the VAT Act that gives the minister to make the power to make an announcement in his budget of a adjustment in the VAT rate, and then Parliament following through by actually giving effect by passing legislation within 12 months. But also it all happens after the minister has had to withdraw a lot of the various pieces of legislation and instruments that constitute the whole that you and I know as the national budget. So a lot of it up in the air, the argument coming up as well, and I'm just summing up here, the argument coming up as well that says you actually need a court order to enable that train that is already in motion, that is the VAT increase from coming in on the 1st of May. So let's leave it there. In a moment, we'll focus on workers' rights, and that has to do with the date that's coming up, the next holiday that's coming up, the 1st of May, and that's coming up this week. What are the implications of some of the proposals that are being made about legislative changes around particularly how you undertake, certain processes to retrench workers, as well as unfair discrimination and discrimination generally in the workplace. That conversation, we focus on it in just a moment. Hey, welcome back. A historic day is upon us once again. May the 1st marks Workers' Day, which is a moment to honor the tireless contributions and struggles of workers across the country and reflect on the long struggle for labor rights in this country. But in 2025, the question must be asked, are trade unions still a powerful force in workers' lives, or have they become too entangled in politics and internal conflicts to be effective? Joining us to unpack this is Zwelinze Mavavi, who is General Secretary of the South African Federation of Trade Unions, that's SAFTU, as well as labor law expert Michael Bagram, who will help us make sense of the current legal terrain facing workers and unions alike. Good afternoon, gentlemen. I've got to thank you for your time. Mr. Vavi, let me start with you. We talk about workers' contributions, workers' struggles, and that has to do with the tradition that we have of labor activism in this country, doesn't it? That it's not just about workplace struggles, but it's also about the coalface of workers in context. When you read that struggle for workers, both in the workplace and in the socio-economic and political context, where do workers find themselves as we approach May the 1st, 2025?
Just a second to pass SAFTU's deepest condolences to the family of Katishi Masemula, the former General Secretary of FAO.
Absolutely.
Who passed away 2 nights ago. And he was one of the most intelligent, humble, and hardworking General Secretary FAO have ever had in their history. We want to send our deepest condolences to his family, and both here in Soweto as well as in Limpopo, and to assure them that we are with them even at this difficult moment. Now, coming to your question, yes, there's no doubt that the trade union movement is facing upheaval after another. The battling to be relevant, and the relevance is now shown by the fact that only about 24% of workers still belong to unions, down to around 40% just about 14 years, 15 years ago in 2007. And the combination of factors has been their downfall, but the most important one has been internal divisions and has been the presence of money that creates havoc, has been the introduction of the investment companies, and with all of the allegations against the leadership that they are using these to enrich themselves and to abandon the cause of the workers, and has been trapped into political relationships that are not useful at all to the cause of the working class, and has been trying to be everything except to serve the best interest of workers. So yes, it's not the best day, and that's why we are weaker. We are weaker now than any other time since the rising of the Black Trade Union movement after the 1973 Durban strikes. And anyone who denies that means that he wants to perpetuate the current weaknesses into an unforeseeable future going forward. It's time to go back to the drawing board to repurpose the trade union movement. There is a rich history that we should learn from in the past, and there's been excellent examples of service, of sacrifice, of hard work, of militants, of internal democracy, and of real worker control, not as a slogan.
Yeah.
A real worker control of unbelievable levels of honesty. You remember, we come from the history where unions used to collect large sums of money through hand collection in the gates of workers, but now, and those monies were never stolen, but now the one in the bank gets stolen.
Yeah.
So yes, it's difficult. It's difficult, but we must soldier on. And we can't say we're giving up to all of these new tendencies.
Michael Bagram, part of that socio-economic and political context has to do with the playing field as defined and demarcated by the law. Our country is known for, the raft of labor laws that are always at the center of a certain tension, aren't they? With the one side, the employers and business saying you could be more flexible with these labor laws to encourage investment, with the workers' side saying that actually, absolutely not. Actually, you need to be even more progressive. Where do we stand with that debate and that tension as we approach Workers' Day 2025?
Thank you. Yes, I find myself in an invidious position in that I never agree with Mr. Vavi, but I do agree with him today. I agree with him in the sense that we need to go back to the drawing board. We need to be workerist. We need to ensure that the trade unions look after the workers, make sure that the workers are defended, make sure that our law becomes more worker-friendly, all that sort of thing. When they come from an illustrious history, our trade union movement comes from they led to the fall of apartheid. And it is an illustrious history, and it's pretty sad where we've come to now. So I unfortunately have to agree with Mr. Vavi on this particular occasion. He'll probably now hit me on the head when he hears this. But let me just tell you right now that a lot of our labor laws are actually really good. I'm very proud when I travel the world and speak to other labor lawyers around the world. We've got fine institutions such as the CCMA. We've got some fine laws such as setting up the various entities under the Department of Employment and Labor. The problem is that these laws are good, but in practice they are useless. So when workers try to get UIF, for instance, they can't get their money out. It belongs to workers. It belongs to the workers of South Africa. And when the trade unions try and help them, they're up against a brick wall. Government has failed the workers of South Africa. So yes, there's a lot to celebrate about the history of the trade union movement on May Day, on the 1st of May. And we're all going to celebrate that because the history of the trade union movement has done us good. But currently standing, we've even got a fight amongst the unions. COSATU and SAFTU are having a full-blown dispute at the moment which I personally don't want to interfere in, but really we need to get back to defending workers. Trade unions shouldn't be fighting for political positions. They shouldn't be fighting for the officials in the trade unions. And I think Mr. Vavi's pointed at this without saying it.
Yeah.
But there are certain officials that try and access money and favors and politics. It's really not on. We need to get back to what the trade unions are really there for, to defend workers. They should be the sword and the shield of every worker in South Africa.
Mr. Vavi, let me take you back to perhaps what I can term your diagnosis of the state of the labor movement, which you gave just a few minutes ago in 2025. To what extent does that account for the voice of labor being heard or otherwise in the ongoing debates that clearly have an import for the working class? Debates around the VAT increase, for example. There was a bit of activism on the part of labor, but I didn't get the sense that this was the dominant voice raising it sharply and effectively. All right, I do believe I have a bit of a challenge with the line to Zwelinzima Vavi. But let me stick with you, Michael Bagram, in the meantime, and ask you, at the core of this discussion, what I'd like to be at the core of this discussion is the relevant debate around the mooted changes to our country's labor laws. I read through them. I must tell you, despite my legal training, I battled to really get what's at the heart of what is being proposed. And perhaps with further reading, I'll be able to get to it. Talk to me about these proposed changes that come in from that NEDLAC report, but also that have to do with the Code of Good Governance, Code of Good Practice on dismissals and the whole procedure that is to be followed. It's quite contentious, but what is it? What are some of the key propositions that are being made there?
Well, you must understand that NEDLAC has been debating this, and NEDLAC is made up of government, big business, and big trade union umbrella bodies, of which Mr. Vavi is a part of that. And they try to keep him out of that for many years, but he's now part of it, thank God. The bottom line is NEDLAC, since 2022, has been discussing amendments to the Labour Relations Act in particular, and the Code of Good Practice. Now, the point being that those amendments are looking at, in particular, job creation in South Africa. We're at the extended definition of unemployed in the country, coming from COSATU, in fact, is telling us that 42% unemployment in South Africa, which is completely unsustainable. Why we haven't had an Arab Spring, I don't know, because at least half the people who want to get into the workplace just can't get there. And that explains why the trade union membership has dropped to 22%, because people have lost hope and faith. Now, those changes, I think many of them are excellent. Have a look at them carefully. And what they're trying to do is they're trying to simplify a whole lot of systems. They're trying to simplify the way you can employ people. They're trying to simplify the way you can discipline people and even dismiss. They're going to bring back the power of the system itself. In other words, if you're on probation, then probation is true probation. It won't have to go through a whole full disciplinary inquiry like running by lawyers to be able to dismiss someone. If you need to retrench in the first year, then you'll be able to do that. They're saying that we need to ease up the regulations, and I agree with that entirely, because I deal as an attorney. I deal every day with dozens of businesses, in particular small businesses, which are the engine room for job creation. They tell me they're not going to employ because it's too difficult to dismiss. So what the regulations are trying to do to say it's not too difficult to dismiss, if someone is not functional, if they're not making a profit in the business, then they can dismiss. And I think we've come to an agreement through NEDLAC, which is a very powerful institution and should be a powerful influence on government itself, and in particular, the employment committees in Parliament. The employment discussions should take place as to how do we create more jobs? How do we get more people into trade unions? That's what it boils down to.
All right. Thank you for your time this afternoon, Michael. That's Michael Bagram, who is a labor law expert. It's a pity that we lost the line to Zwelinzima Vavi there, but we did get, I would believe, a substantial contribution from him. This is The Week Ahead here on SABC News. Stand by. In the next few minutes, our specialist desk editors and key reporters and journalists will be coming through to give you a sense of where the story is going in the areas that they are watching: politics, economics, and other areas. Stick with us. Welcome back. This is the week ahead on SABC News. Let's give you a sense then of where the story is going, starting with our specialist desk editors. Let's start with the economics desk. I'm joined in studio by SABC News economics reporter, Katleho Lekhodi. Good afternoon, Katleho. Thank you for coming through. So let's start with the markets. What kind of a week are we expecting in the markets? There's always various factors at play: international, global, regional, and domestic as well.
Good afternoon to us and of course to our viewers at home. It's been about the political economy, and everyone else has been looking at how the rand is reacting and how the markets are reacting to some of the developments coming out of the political space. So even this week we'll see that playing out as we see the tussle between whether the VAT increase will kick in on the 1st of May or whether there would be that adjustment, as we see various companies just moving, businesses moving to adjust as per what we saw the minister tabling last week Thursday. So it's still about that, and the rand really, when you look at the market, has not been doing well where all of these issues are concerned. We ended the week on it hovering around 18 rand 88 cent. But when you look at where we come from, when the month started, the month of May, there have been a lot of uncertainties around the rand. It started at 18 rand, it moved at some point to 19 rand 93 cent, where a lot of people were talking about the shocks that were coming from the United States. But also we see it now moving back gradually, hovering in the middle between 18 rand 88 cents. That's how it closed off when we last saw the markets playing out on Friday. It's a long weekend. It's going to be a short week, but everybody else is looking at that. How do we see the week just playing itself out? How do we see the rand reacting to this? How do we see the political implications feeding into the economy, and all of these sentiments coming from the global shocks, as well as you saw Minister Godongwana and also the Reserve Bank governor. They were in the United States, and just looking at how then we continue with the momentum around our G20 presidency as all of these things are playing themselves out.
So Katleho, I suppose uncertainty is the word of the moment, isn't it? Because 1 minute SARS and others are telling vendors and businesses that prepare yourselves, you will be implementing 15.5% VAT increase with its own mathematical complications, that 0.5. Then the next minute they're told, no, hang on, don't do that. And now as we are taking that in, we're hearing that more needs to be done other than the minister announcing that the VAT increase of 0.5 percentage points is off. How do you see that story playing itself out in what you've clearly said is a short week?
Remember, it's been about the fiscal framework. When it was tabled, we're looking at the midterm, this being 3 years. And we see around that announcement, even over the postponement the first time, the contention has been around VAT. And everybody else looking at how do we see that playing out also to the consumers. But also political parties have come through to try by all means to muscle their ways into this one as per their constituents. So they too will continue with their communications, conversations around who then claims victory, but what processes follow, even where Parliament is concerned, following the tabling of that amendment by the minister on Thursday. So we'll still continue to see that one play out. A lot of people are just looking at the reversal of these announcements by some of these companies, but at the same time, there's still that announcement of the shortfall. When the minister announced on Thursday the reversal of these 0.5 percentage point VAT, there was still that concern around the 75 billion rand shortfall. So members of parliament, economists alike, and even ordinary people are now just looking at what does this mean if you're saying that you're removing the VAT, but there's still that 75 billion rand shortfall. Where is this money going to be coming from? So they're inundated with that. Now we see a lot of people talking about the ball moving into the court of SARS to try and ramp up the collection of taxes so they can cover that shortfall. But a lot of people also talking about the government expenditure to say, can we afford now to be borrowing more than what we've borrowed right now? Can we afford to tweak in terms of the social services, a budget going to infrastructure and the likes? These are some of the issues that are inundated. The ministers inundated with, treasuries inundated with, members of parliament are inundated with, but all of them are just looking as to how do they balance all of these matters for the consumer, with the consumer in mind, looking at the tricky economy that that we've been navigating so far.
And the other reason why it's going to be a short week is not only the holiday tomorrow, but also on Thursday being Workers' Day. I don't imagine that the themes that you and I are talking about will be far off from the celebrations and commemorations of Workers' Day. What are your expectations there?
It's always interesting because Freedom Day, May Day, this is the 1st of May, Workers' Day always follows Freedom Day. And you see a lot of sentiments, a lot of talks, rhetorics today, with a lot of people taking stock of where they find themselves now, how they're moving into this economy. Others even talking about whether we really have experienced that freedom in its entirety, looking at how the economy has not been faring for some time for a lot of people on the ground. So you hear people asking themselves to say, can we really say that we are free right now, looking at the fact that we are navigating debt, we have a highly indebted working force. Also at the same time, we see the retrenchments playing themselves out. At the same time, we see a lot of people, moving from hand to mouth. A lot of people now have stretched themselves even to less. People are now freelancing and the like so that they can cover the economy and keep up with the economy. So a lot of them will be taking stock on Wednesday, Thursday, around how then where they fit in this process of whether you are free or not. There's a lot of stress that a lot of consumers, a lot of workers are navigating right now. If I can take you to even those that are within the public sector, you often hear of the missing middle, so they are not able to, use these monies that they get to take their young ones to school. So a lot of people will be taking stock here, but it's all about that, reflecting on where we find ourselves 31 years later and how then can we move to try and close some of these gaps that have existed over time with the economy and the workers in mind. So they'll be looking at various of these events as the economics team will be scattered as well through various of these events marking Workers' Day. But it's all about that, taking stock and how do we then ensure that we safeguard the labor force.
So late last week, we learned that there was a direct conversation between President Cyril Ramaphosa and US President Donald Trump. And as part of that, not only were they talking about Ukraine, but also talking about meeting face to face to try and iron out the differences between them. What are the implications that we expect of that new conversation now between South Africa and the US and the relationships and the implications for the economy?
When one looks at the posture of Donald Trump, he's toned down a bit from the Liberation Day when he announced those tariffs. So there are now conversations with various of the countries, including us, South Africa, as to how do we actually move forward in salvaging some of the relations between South Africa and the United States. So that call kind of, gave a little bit of confidence to the investors, those that are watching the bond markets and how the economy is moving around sentiment, that at least there's something that is being done by South Africa. Remember that there have been tensions around AGOA and the market, the access to some of these markets that are preferential for some of our goods here. We are still navigating this 90-day pause, and we'll see as to what does this mean then when that 90-day is lifted here. But a lot of people just looking at ensuring that we salvage as much as we can. There are industries that cannot afford to see the lack of access. There are industries that cannot afford to move into that space. The automotive sector, the agricultural sector, they're all looking at ensuring that they capitalize on some of the access to the markets. The US is a big player where this is concerned. So we'll see that one playing out. Just last week, we saw the minister. He was there in Washington. We saw the Reserve Bank
for
governor.
the IMF meeting.
Yeah, for the IMF meeting. So they're all talking about economic growth. How do we ensure that we solidify our plans around economic growth while we navigate all of these global shocks coming from the United States? So it's kind of, at least it gives them an assurance of some sort that there would be those direct communication. But we are in a G20 year. A lot of people also looking as to how do we then ensure that there's no friction over the handing over, because we are supposed to hand over to the United States. And Donald Trump, through his posts, he's already indicated that Andizi is not coming to South Africa.
Let's see what happens.
So we'll
maybe
maybe
they will have spoken by that time, and hopefully something progressive will come through. Thank you for that. Katlego Legodi, SABC News economics reporter. Stand by, because in the next few minutes, I will be with Ndebu Mokobo, who will be opening his diary for the week and giving you a sense of the moving parts of the story as far as politics goes.
Do you want to feel protected like royalty, especially when dealing with legal issues? Clientele Legal's nationwide team of professional lawyers stand as your loyal defenders, protecting you in civil, criminal, and labor-related matters. Clientele Legal is always ready to protect your legal rights. We provide superior legal services for an affordable monthly premium. Clientele Legal will always protect you and your family. Our dedicated legal team are standing by 24 hours a day, ensuring your peace of mind.
Clientele Legal gives me peace of mind.
Clientele Legal are professionals and they can help you with any legal matter.
Clientele is the best.
Clientele Royalty is your free loyalty program offering a wide range of monthly savings and discounts. Spin for a chance to win your share of 10 million rands in prizes with Spin and Win. Clientele Royalty, rewarding loyalty. SMS LEGAL to 48523 and we'll call you back. SMS now.
Welcome back. This is the week ahead on SABC News. Let's continue to open our senior reporters and editors' diaries. And Ntebu Mokobo, senior SABC News politics reporter, joining me now. So Ntebu, thank you for coming through. It's been a while, bro. It's good to see you, man. You're looking good.
Thanks, Tulas.
Ntebu Mokobo for SABC News. Tell me about the DA and the EFF and the court bid. That started last week. We expect that it will continue to unfold despite the announcement of the minister.
Yes, indeed. I mean, the DA and the EFF now want the rescission of the entire adoption of the policy framework. What they want is that it has to be restarted.
Yeah.
You can't have a half-baked adoption of the budget. So you need to restart everything. The entire process was marred by illegalities. That's what they're saying. So they're saying that they'll be battling it out in court on Tuesday. And hopefully, if it goes their way or if it goes against them, then it will be in the ball of the ANC really to decide on, do they really need a partner like the DA in their coalition? And in the next few days or so, well, the DA will have to go to, the ANC will have to have its own National Executive Committee meeting. That National Executive Committee meeting will then decide on their relation with the DA and everyone. And of course, FedEx will also decide on whether they still want to continue with this marriage or what.
Yeah,
that's going to happen this week.
So in essence, that's the continuation of that battle around whether or not we have a budget to even speak of at the moment. Because I think even the minister was quite honest in saying that I'll be withdrawing, certain, because you and I call it the budget, but it's different pieces
phases,
of
yes.
legislation, and those are being withdrawn and being replaced.
Yes, the two pieces will be replaced after the withdrawal.
Yeah.
The DA and the EFF are saying, no, you must restart the entire process. And as we stand today, it's like since February, we don't have a budget that we can talk about in South Africa. And that on its own has thrown everything into a turmoil.
Yeah.
But we've been told by the president that we need to be very calm. Everything would work out as and when it happens.
Yeah. And then in that mix, during this week, we're going to have Workers' Day commemorations. This is it might look like it's about workplace issues, shop floor issues, but there's always something more to this day, traditionally, in South Africa. Do we expect it to play out the same way that it has political implications, socio-economic implications?
Well, there will be a lot. In fact, there's just a lot against the ANC. What will be happening is that the president of the ANC will be there. We know that he's not well, but they'll make sure that he's there because the Communist Party will be there. SACP General Secretary Solima Paila, COSATU President Zingiswa Lusi will be there. But that would be a show-off of the unity of this alliance. You would recall that sometime last year, the SACP said it's going to contest future elections independently. So as the ANC continues to suffer this electoral decline, even in municipalities, in these by-elections, they want to come closer to their alliance partner, the ANC, the SACP and COSATU. Because if they don't, then it means the SACP will feel that we are further sidelined by our alliance partner. And this is a root reminder for us to contest or to stand on our own. So it will be a show of unity when they meet on Wednesday. And they will make sure that the messaging is one, that everyone will be harping against the DA on what the DA and the conduct of the DA is in that meeting.
Yeah, but is there still a sense, though, Ntebo, that the other alliance partners, such as the ANC, are even at this point trying to convince the SACP about not contesting independently? Or is that debate now moot? Everyone almost accepts that it's going to happen, but we still remain alliance partners, and I don't know how.
The debate is not really moot, because the ANC, I think, understands the political ramifications that comes with the SACP walking out. I mean, if you look at the SACP and the ANC, together they went to campaign and they got around 40%. So with the ANC alone, what's going to happen? With COSATU supporting the SACP, because some in COSATU are saying, for years now, we've been treated as step brothers and sisters in this alliance partner, in this alliance pact. So the ANC, whether the debate it's not as loud as one would expect. Behind the scene, they are very concerned that the SACP has mooted this thing of contesting elections alone, and if that thing happens, it's going to affect them seriously going forward.
And lastly, Ntebo, take me back to that conversation around the much anticipated ANC National Executive Committee meeting. So you're saying that it will focus intently on this question of continued cooperation with the DA in the government of national unity?
Yes, there's a lot of stakes against the ANC. The ANC currently has been accused of a party that is not really caring about the poor. They were advised, and they acted against the good advice that people said, don't buy into this thing of hiking VAT. The DA now came out of this debacle or out of this impasse as a political party that is really caring for poor black people in this country. And then the ANC will have to decide, because now they've been in and out of court, their minister has been in and out of court because of the DA. They will have to decide whether, is this a real partner that we can work with? But you must understand again that whether you want to walk away from the GNU, that's not your business as a political party. There's a project of the market forces. There's no one who's going to willingly just decide one day to wake up and say, I'm leaving the GNU. They are forced into this thing by business. So you need to tread carefully when you're angry. So I don't think even the National Executive Committee, when it convenes, it will pronounce on walking away from the GNU. There are those who would want the DA to leave in the ANC, but I don't think their voice is as loud as those who would want them to work together.
All right, Ntebo, thank you for that. So a packed diary as far as our politics desk is concerned. That's Ntebo Mokobo there, giving you a sense of what to expect in as far as the politics desk is concerned in the coming week. Let's go to international news then. Sophie Mkwena, SABC News international editor, joins us now to open her diary. Sophie, good afternoon. Sophie, tell me about the US President Donald Trump meeting Volodymyr Zelensky. This happened yesterday during the funeral of the Pope. And then tell me a bit more about the meeting between Steve Witkoff, the envoy, with the Russian President Vladimir Putin, and what it all means for the week ahead and the effort to try and bring peace in the Ukrainian situation.
Yes, in terms of our diary, we'll be looking at whether those interactions, including the one in South Africa, of course, President Ramaphosa and President Zelensky, they will produce much-needed results that can lead to a situation where we see the cessation of hostilities and unconditional ceasefire, as the president of Ukraine has pointed out in that breaking news on Thursday when he was with President Ramaphosa. So we don't know whether that short meeting, as we often say in terms of diplomacy, you don't need hours and hours. Just when you whisper to something, that can go a long way in paving way for a massive or a big announcement. And those interactions for us is what's going to happen, where to from now. Will this lead to cessation of hostilities or to see the warring factions, Ukraine and Russia, agreeing on issues that has to do with unconditional ceasefire. And that envoy, the U.S. envoy, Moscow, meeting the president of Russia, Vladimir Putin, that was part of the diplomacy and diplomatic shuttle, around the world to bring together everybody to try and find a lasting solution.
And then we're watching the situation in the DRC and the efforts and the dialogue between Rwanda and the DRC. Tell me what exactly we're looking at in as far as progress on peace talks is concerned.
Is it not strange that President Trump is all over in Ukraine, in the Middle East, and now DRC, eastern part of the DRC? So we saw the two foreign affairs ministers of Rwanda and DRC meeting the Secretary of State of United States of America, Marco Rubio, and then coming out agreeing on a particular cause, and that cessation of hostilities. But my problem is, it is very, very embarrassing for African countries to sign peace deals outside the continent. It's an embarrassment to Lasisi. It means Africans are not capable. The neighbors are not capable. And therefore, that two-nathering between Rwanda and DRC, I am not convinced. We are going to dig, because the reality is Rwanda was making noise that it is about the M23. Now it looks like it's about them with the mineral resources of the DRC. Because when you look at that agreement, it's all about the mineral resources of the DRC. Rwanda wants a share, DRC wants its stake because it's its own country, and America, it's clear. It's all about mineral resources. Therefore, is this solution sustainable with exclusion of the M23? I don't think so. That's what we will be chasing. Rwanda must come out clear. What's the intention? Now they've turned around. They are not saying it's about M23.
And into that mix then, Sophie, we talk about Africa Month, which starts on the 1st of May. I suppose these are some of the themes, the ability of African countries to seek homegrown solutions that are sustainable to some of the conflict situations as well as areas of disagreement. What will you be looking at as far as the start of Africa Month is concerned?
We are going to put AU on a spotlight. You have lots of challenges. What are the solutions? You are found wanting. Here is DRC and Rwanda agreeing outside the continent, in Qatar, in America. Issues that are supposed to be resolved by the continent. What is the problem? But secondly, the annual Thabo Mbeki lecture this time around will be outside the continent. And therefore, we will be chasing that lecture in terms of getting the theme of the lecture. And I have no doubt that whoever is going to deliver the lecture is going to be hard-hitting, particularly, as I pointed out, on these issues of Africa being paralyzed, leaders not leading, the isolation of young leaders, and the problem of the Sahel, where now there's now an attempt to really deal with Burkina Faso. Yes, there was a coup there in Niger and Mali, but what caused those coups, and what do you do to bring those countries back at the regional organization or towards or the continent, not continuously sidelining them and staging another coup held by neighboring countries in the Sahel region or West Africa, supported by external forces. because they want the resources of the Sahel region.
All right, Sophie, thank you for that. Let's leave it there. That's Sophie Mukwena, the SABC News international editor. So you've seen what the week looks like in terms of the insights and analysis that they'll be bringing you as a team as far as international events go. Don't go anywhere. This is the week ahead. We are back with more for you in just a moment. Sunday, the 27th of April 2025. It's Freedom Day 2025. Good afternoon. This is the third hour of the week ahead here on SABC News. Let's give you your headlines now. The EFF, like the DA, has also filed its own supplementary court papers in the Western Cape Division of the High Court, aiming to force Parliament to rescind the 2025 budget process. The party argues that South Africa has no lawful budget and it is important to re-establish constitutional compliance and fiscal legitimacy in the budget process. In the annual Crying Sumo event in Tokyo, parents and babies gathered at Tokyo's Senso-ji temple for a 400-year-old tradition known as the Naki Sumo. Babies were gently lifted into the air by sumo wrestlers, while priests encouraged infants to cry through playful gestures. Despite the tears, the atmosphere remained celebratory. And in your sport, Crystal Palace took one step closer to winning the FA Cup for the first time in their history as they beat Aston Villa 3-0 at Wembley. Eberechi Eze put Palace ahead after half an hour before Ismaila Sarr drilled home to double the lead just before the hour. The Eagles then wrapped up victory in style as Sarr broke free in stoppage time to slot home for his second and Palace's third of the afternoon. You know, there are those stories that just make you smile. The Crying Sumo babies is one of those that just got me smiling this afternoon. Good afternoon. It's great to be in your company. We are, of course, marking the 27th of April, which is Freedom Day. So let's start with this story. The last week of April 24th to the 30th it is marked as World Immunization Week. According to a media statement by the World Health Organization, the goal of World Immunization Week is for more people and their communities to be protected from vaccine-preventable diseases, and the theme this year is Immunization for All is Humanly Possible. With the flu season looming, we take a look at the importance of taking disease preventative vaccines and promoting health. So let's talk about that then in detail. I'm joined by Dr. Leslie Bamford, a specialist in the child, youth and school health and at the National Department of Health. Good afternoon, Doc, and thank you for your time. So explain to us the importance of World Immunization Week and how it fits in with our own efforts as a country to control those immunization preventable diseases from continuing to afflict our population.
So good afternoon, and good afternoon to the viewers. So of course, in South Africa, as in every country, every day is an immunization day. But we do particularly focus during World or African Vaccination Week in the last week of April, and really try to use that as an opportunity to make sure that we advocate for vaccines, that parents and caregivers and communities really understand the importance of making sure that particularly children, but increasingly we also have vaccines for adolescents and adults. So really to make sure that everyone who should be benefiting from vaccines, getting the vaccines so to be protected from vaccine preventable diseases, that they do have access to those vaccines, that they get the vaccines so that they can be protected.
Yeah, and of course, many of us are familiar with the so-called road to health chart that children have. But the way I understand it, immunization and that process doesn't start and end there. As important a foundation as it is, there are certain follow-up vaccines. And is it true that a person will likely need vaccinations at various stages throughout their life?
So exactly. So historically, vaccines have mostly been provided to children. And it does remain extremely important that all children receive all of the vaccines in what we call the EPI, the immunization schedule, that is contained in the child's Road to Health booklet. And we really do always want to encourage parents and caregivers to make sure that their children are up to date with those vaccinations, to go when they are due, and to understand that if they have missed a vaccine, they can always come to our health facilities to receive what we call catch-up vaccines. However, increasingly, if we look at the vaccine landscape globally, but also in South Africa, we see that increasingly there are vaccines that have been developed and are being used to protect other age groups. So one of our flagship programs is our HPV vaccination program, where we vaccinate girls in schools to protect them against developing cancer, cervical cancer, much later in their lives. And then increasingly there are also other vaccines for adults. In 2024, we introduced what we call a Tdap vaccine for pregnant women. We know that during COVID, we had COVID vaccines. And as you indicated, we are going into flu season. And this is a time when people who are vulnerable to developing severe infection, severe influenza, should come to our facilities to get a flu vaccine.
So tell me a bit more about that category of people that you are encouraging to get a flu vaccine. You're talking about people that are susceptible to getting severe influenza. What categories of people are we talking about? And how easy is it to get a flu vaccine in the public sector?
So the categories that we target are older people, people 60 years and older, also people with other underlying infections, particularly respiratory and cardiac conditions. We do also recommend that pregnant women should be protected against flu infection. So those vaccines are currently in our health facilities, and people who fall into those categories are encouraged to come forward and go to a health facility to get vaccinated.
So vaccine skepticism was a big talking point during the time of, at the height of the COVID outbreak. And I believe some countries have continued to grapple with the aftermath of that phenomenon of debates around vaccine skepticism. And I think one of the observations has been made is that in countries such as the USA, you started seeing diseases like measles once again, something that is vaccine preventable. Where are we in that conversation as South Africa? How are we countering vaccine skepticism with clear, information that empowers people around this issue?
So I think historically, if we look in South Africa, we have had a strong childhood vaccine program. The vast majority of children in South Africa certainly get their early vaccines, suggesting that vaccine skepticism or vaccine hesitancy is not a major issue, but we are very concerned that following COVID, we may be seeing an increase in vaccine hesitancy or vaccine skepticism. So really our job as healthcare workers is constantly to provide families, communities, caregivers with evidence-based information around vaccines. We know that vaccines are both very effective and very safe. and that it is very important both for individuals and for the community as a whole to be protected against vaccine-preventable diseases. We know that if vaccination coverage rates drop, as you indicated, in places like the USA, they are seeing cases of measles that they haven't had for many years. In South Africa, we are also seeing some sporadic cases of measles. We're seeing some cases of diphtheria. And these are all serious diseases that are preventable through vaccination. Those vaccinations are available in our primary healthcare facilities, free of charge. And so, again, we have to come back to this message of really encouraging every parent, every caregiver, and every family member to keep track of whether their children are vaccinated and to come forward and have the child vaccinated.
And how important are schools as sites of, promoting this message? And I suppose, given your specialty as well, Doc, that it's in child, youth, and school health, how important are schools as sites of promoting good health that balances preventative health measures such as vaccines, but also balances, other interventions when a person has fallen ill and just sustained healthy living?
So we have our school health program, and as I indicated, one of the things that we're most proud of is that we have managed to vaccinate more than 4 million girl learners against HPV in the past 10 years. So that provides them with protection against cervical cancer, which is a disease that develops many years later. But of course, we want to prevent it now. Now is when we have to act. We are looking to expand the immunizations that we provide in our schools as part of the package of school health services. But schools also have a very important role to play in providing information to learners and through learners to their families. So, coming back to this issue of vaccine hesitancy and vaccine skepticism, a lot of that is based on a very poor understanding of I guess the science behind and the evidence behind vaccines. So it's really important that we educate our learners, that we increase literacy around understanding these issues, so that people can really make rational decisions about whether or not to be vaccinated. And we believe that really the science and the evidence is very much on the side of vaccines. As I indicated, they are safe and effective, but people really need to understand what that means and how they've been tested. And I think the more people understand that, the greater willingness there will be to ensure that they and their families and their communities are protected through vaccination.
And as far as you can tell, because part of the conversation that has been happening recently has been about the impact of some of the decisions taken by the United States in relation to aid that is advanced to various countries, including healthcare aid, including to countries such as our own. As far as you can tell, other than the disruption of research around vaccination for certain viruses and diseases, has there been any other impact that would affect, in a way, availability and supply of vaccines in this country, as far as you know?
So in South Africa, we, unlike many other countries, particularly low-income countries, we buy our own vaccines. We do not rely on external funds for purchasing our vaccines. So that sets us up, in good stead. We are hearing stories. There are reports that some registration of new vaccines has been delayed in the United States. So obviously that is of concern. But I think in the short term, we buy our own vaccines. we do not anticipate any direct impact of perhaps some increased skepticism at a high level around vaccines.
Yeah. And then just lastly, Doc, just talk to me about information filtering through, helpful information, because in some of the work you do, for example, we require the consent of a parent to administer a vaccine immunization at the schooling level. How easy is it to arm parents, communities with that information that enables them to make those decisions, especially around the issue of consent? I was thinking about it as you were talking about vaccinating girl learners for HPV, for example, and I imagined the kinds of conversations you would have needed to have for parents to understand and give informed consent.
No, absolutely. I think with our HPV program, one of the great strengths has been that it is we have a very close working relationship with the Department of Education. And so educators and school governing bodies are all on board. And in a sense, they are our front line to answer concerns and questions from parents. Of course, we also try and make as much information available, whether it's through social media, through radio programs that we have each week around child health issues. So I think there is quite a lot of information out there, but of course we always need to work to try and make that information as accessible and available to everyone who needs that information.
All right, I've got to thank you for your time this afternoon. That's Dr. Leslie Bamford, who is a specialist in the child, youth and school health at the National Department of Health. So there you have it, the conversation about World Vaccination Week and also the implications of the progress around vaccination in our own country. In the next few minutes, we focus on student accommodation.